Greetings, 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 greetings. It is I, King Clifford Jefferson, a Senator Godfrey the Fifth Count of Anjou, the son of folk, the ruler of Jerusalem. I'm the reincarnation of King Edgar the Peaceful, which we know here at the Third Tip English Church of England as Jesus Christ, the Vicar of Christ, or Melchizedek, the King of Righteousness. It is March 6, 2025, which is equivalent to our birth year 2975. I greet you in the name of the ancestors. I greet you in the name of our predecessors. I greet you in the name of our successors. I greet you in the name of my Queen Sister Galveston from the House of Galveston. I greet you in the name of Archbishop Belmont from the House of Belmont. I greet you in the name of all officers as well as staff and all those who are trying to get understanding of what it is that we are here and called to do. Today's lecture is part 2 of United States and UK relations in 2025, all involving the trade war. Okay, this is part 2 of the United States and UK relations in 2025 in regards to the trade war. And we're going to go to the origin of the trade war that was initiated by Donald Trump. Okay, all right, that was initiated by Donald Trump. All right, that's present right now. Okay, and we're going to trace that back all the way back to the origin of trade wars. Okay, and when we trace the origin, 1 second, testing. Greetings, greetings. 1 second. Greetings. Where is that? It is I, King Clifford Jefferson. What is that? Senator Godfrey the Fifth Count of Anjou. Oh, no. Why did I do that? Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Once again, greetings to you all. Today is going to be a very exciting lesson. Okay, we're going to talk about a lot of things we talked about in part 1. Okay, we're going to talk about a lot of things that we talked about in part 1. Okay, I don't know what happened to this video. Give me 1 second. All right, we're going to discuss the origin of the trade war, who were involved in the trade wars, and the reason why the trade wars exist. Okay, very important because nothing happens by chance. Okay, so give me a second to let me get this set up, and we can get into it. Bear with me for a second. All right, sorry about that interruption. All right, so yeah, this is going to be part 2 of the day before yesterday's lesson involving United States and United Kingdom's relation in 2025, all involving trade wars. And we're going to go to the origin of those trade wars today. We're going to get to the bottom of it. All right, brothers and sisters. So bear with me. And we ain't going to play around today. Right? Hope you all be watching the news with Donald Trump and Prime Minister from UK. All right, because that is the topic we're talking about, their relation, okay? Their current and long-going relation, UK and United States. We're going to see how Trump embarrasses the Prime Minister of UK. We're also going to see that Trump is trying to annex Canada, subsequent to the tariffs that have been imposed upon Canada. All right, outside the wishes of the Charles III, who's supposed to be the so-called king of the United Kingdom. Okay, so the prime minister is not only suggesting or praying that the tariffs won't affect the United Kingdom, but he's also being shushed by Donald Trump. Okay, in regards to questions on the floor relative to the annexation of Canada, as well as the unity of UK and uh, United States relations going back to the founding of this country. Okay. And then we're going to expose all that by going to the origin of the trade wars that goes back to the Anglo and Dutch wars. Okay. All right. We know that the kings of Scotland had some Scottish, Dutch, German in their family. Okay. This all goes back to the Glorious Revolution. This all goes back to the Reformation. All right. This all goes back to uh what we call the the Spanish Reconquistador. Okay. It goes into what we call the Spanish succession. All right. All this goes into the relationship between the United States and the UK, as well as the UK and the Dutch, okay, as well as the Dutch and the Spanish, okay. These are alliances that we're going to discuss today. The UK and the United States, which you call Great Britain, all right, UK, Great Britain, all right, their relationship to the United States, the UK relationship to Netherlands or the Dutch, and the relationship to the Dutch part itself to the Spanish, yeah, to the Dutch to the Spanish. Okay, very important that we understand that to make these connections. All right, I have to move for a second. Right. This is going to be one of the most powerful lessons that you ever heard. We're going to talk about what's ain't being talked about, what's not being talked about. Okay, we're going to talk about what's not being talked about. All right. So without further ado, let's get started with this marvelous lesson. Okay. First, let's look back at the topic of trade wars. Pretty much what we went through yesterday. All right. Trade wars. If there's any questions in the chat line, please post them as well as in the comments, and I'll do my best to try to answer them. All right. Basic understanding about trade wars. We know trade wars involves matters denoting to economics. Okay. Resources. All right. Property. So we must look at it in its entirety. All right. These are the questions that the people are in those meetings in regards to being informers of information that the public needs to be aware of. These are the questions that needs to be asked. Okay. Once again, Judge Benigno, if you're watching, this is to assist you in your endeavor. Okay. Trade war is an economic conflict often resulting from extreme protectionism in which states raise or create tariffs, which are barriers, or other trade barriers against each other in response to trade barriers created by the other party. So parties, international, or it can be state to state, okay, are create tariffs, which is a form of tax, federal tax, I might add. Okay, they just call it tariffs now. Okay, against each other, whether they're a corporation, government, because the government is a corporation, and they impose taxes upon trade and commerce. Okay, based upon import and exports. All right. If tariffs are the exclusive mechanism, then such conflicts are known as customs wars, okay, or toll wars or tariff war. That means that you have to pay to cross borders, okay, to cross barriers. This is pretty much what you do when you're driving your cars and going from state to state or going to tolls on the parkway. This is what you're paying, all right? This is what you're paying. Trade wars arise only if the competitive protection between the states is of the same type and is not valid in the case of dumping exports. All right. Greetings, Brother McGarrell from the House of McGarrell. Greetings that you are able to join me again today. Trade wars could be escalated to full conflict between the states as evidenced in the massacre of the Bandanese after alleged violation of a new treaty. So they gave you an example of a conflict that involved trade wars dealing with states to states. When those states were at one time called colonies, we also know another term for them are called commonwealths. Okay, commonwealth. The First Anglo-Dutch War was caused by disputes over trade. The war began with English attacks on Dutch merchants shipping, but expanded to vast fleets of action. So the first example we have relative to the Anglo and Dutch Wars, which is what we call the United Kingdom, okay, and what we call Netherlands, okay, United Kingdom and Netherlands relations. All right, we'll get to that. Right now, we're dealing with UK and United States relations, okay, because they are the inheritance of what they are the inheritors of what was established between the Netherlands and the UK relations. Okay, so very, very important to understand the timeline. Right, very important. Now we go to the Anglo and Dutch Wars. Very important. Anglo and Dutch Wars, because this in all involves trade wars, because this is where the United States, as well as other countries, inherit the practice of trade. Okay, according to our record, the Anglo and Dutch Wars. Okay, we already know that the Anglo is done with the United Kingdom. That prior to that it was called Great Britain, and prior to that it was called Britain. Okay, so from UK You got from UK was preceded by Great Britain, and Great Britain was preceded by Britain, and Britain was preceded by England. Okay, that is the timeline. Okay, that is the timeline, and all of them had their independent government. Okay, governing their territories, whether it was overseas territorials or whether it were Commonwealth. Okay, this is what we call the King's Radical Title. The King's Radical Title. We will discuss that term. So the Anglo and Dutch wars involved the UK and Netherlands. Okay, the UK and Netherlands, and they're broken down to their respective houses. Okay, so you must understand the timeline. Let's go to background. The English, not the English. Okay, we must understand at this time, we are not dealing with English. We're dealing with Scottish, Irish, German ancestry that was in the loins of the Scottish kings. Okay, all right, because we're going back to the 16th and the 17th century. Okay, these kings were in conflict with the Spanish and French kings at this time. Okay? They were in conflict with the Spanish and French kings at this time under the influence of Roman Catholicism. Okay? This was also the time of the Reformation. Okay? This also is subsequent to where it's going to be what we call the Glorious Revolution. Okay, that's very important. We're going to talk about that today. All right, because this involves the origin of the trade wars. Okay, so we know the trade wars originated as the Anglo and Dutch wars. Okay, it says here the English and the Dutch. English will be Anglo, and Dutch will be Netherlands. Okay, were both participants in the 16th century. So that means from 15th century up to the 16th century, European religious conflicts during the Reformation period between the Roman Catholic House of Habsburg and the opposing Protestant states. At the same time, at the age of exploration, this is the Spanish exploration or the Spanish conquest, dawned in the West, the Dutch and English both sought profit overseas in the New World of the recently discovered continent of the Americas. Okay? England. Still dealing with the Anglo-Dutch Wars, where we're dealing with trade. Okay? We're dealing with trade. All right? Commerce. In the 16th century, Queen Elizabeth I, aka Elizabeth the Great, commissioned several privateers to carry out long-range attacks against the Spanish Empire. Spanish Empire is under what we call the Roman Catholic influence on the Spanish Empire, under what we call Queen Isabella of Spain and King Ferdinand. Okay, we're gonna talk about this in a second. All right, so this commissioned several privateers to carry out long-range attack against the Spanish Empire. Okay, the Spanish Empire, very important, 1492, at the age of discovery. Global interest exemplified by the attacks by Sir Frederick Drake, William Parker, and other Elizabethan sea dogs on Spanish merchant shipping and colonial possessions, partly to provide a pretext for the ongoing hostilities against Spain. Queen Elizabeth assists the Dutch revolt against the Kingdom of Spain by signing the Treaty of Nonsuch in 1585 with the newly established Dutch State Republic of United Provinces. Okay, so we see the Queen Elizabeth, all right, is carrying out attacks against the Spanish Empire. Hold that thought. So the 16th century Queen Elizabeth, we know Elizabeth was the daughter of Henry the Seventh, and Henry the Eighth, and Henry the Eighth was the son of Henry the Seventh, and Henry the Seventh was the founder of the House of Tudors, which was descended from the Lancaster branch, which was the cadet branch of the Plantagenet crown, which was one with the Yorks, okay, which was another cadet branch of the Plantagenet crown, okay, which were all started by Godfrey the Fifth, Count of Anjou, which gave birth to the Angevin crown, and they gave birth to what we call the War of the Roses, okay, the War of the Roses. This in all involves the history of what we call the United Kingdom, okay. Prior to that, it was called Great Britain. Prior to that, it was just called Britain. Okay. Prior to that, it was just called England. So we know that England is the parent company or the parent corporation of all society corporations or companies. Okay. We must understand that. The Stuart. After the death of Elizabeth I, the Anglo-Spanish relations began to improve under the new monarch, James I, and the Peace and Treaty of London in 1604 ended most privateering actions until the outbreak of the next Anglo-Spanish War, 1625-1630, during the large continental 30-year wars of 1618 and 1648. Underfunding then led to neglect of the Royal Navy. Later, Roman Catholics sympathized with King Charles I of England made a number of secret agreements with Spain directed against Dutch sea powers. He also embarked on a major program of naval reconstruction and forced the ship money to rebuild and expand the Royal Navy with the finance and the building of the prestige battle of vessels of the Sovereign Sea. This is after the Restoration. Okay? All right. So as we can see, the Anglo-Dutch wars goes back to, as they said, the Habsburg dynasty. Okay. During the time of the Reformation, as well as the age of exploration into the New World, not the Old World, but the New World. Okay. This involves the Spanish Empire. Okay. This involves knowledge of the Spanish Empire. Okay, I'm gonna just put this food for thought in your head before we move forward. The Spanish Empire, Hispanic monarchy. Okay, this is at the time of the age of discovery. All right, very important to understand that. Over here, all right, religion, Roman Catholicism. The membership involves Trans-Amora, Habsburg, Capetine dynasty, Bourbons, House of Valios in Burgundy, House of Capet, House of Bonaparte, and House of Savoy. This is very important because all these houses involve North Frankish Catholic representatives or affiliates or members, etc. Okay? So the most important house I want you to take a look at is the Habsburg and the Trans-Amora. Okay? The Habsburg and the Trans-Amora. Because the Habsburg and the Trans-Amora are related. Okay? They are related. Trans-Amora is a Castilian house, but influenced by Catholic. Okay? Habsburg House, as we can see, is also influenced by what we call the Spanish Roman Catholics, but is also connected to an alliance with Dutch or Netherlands. Okay, so all this is going to come up in what we call the what we call the Castilian Civil War. The Castilian Civil War. Okay, we're going to talk about that today. It said in 1700, Philip V became King of Spain after the death of Charles II, the last Habsburg monarch of Spain, who died without an heir. His ascension triggered the War of the Spanish Succession, as various European powers contest his claim of throne. Okay? The conflict concluded with the Treaty of Utrecht in 1713, allowing Philip I, Bourbon, King of Spain, to retain the throne, but resulting in territorial losses in Spain. Gibraltar, Minorca, the Spanish Netherlands, all right, and Spanish Italy. Once again, Gibraltar, Menorca, and the Spanish Netherlands, and Spanish Italy. Netherlands is Dutch, okay? Gibraltar, we're dealing with the Iberian Peninsula, the southern part of it. Madeira, all this involves what we call those who were involved in the Castilian Civil War, which we're not going to go through right now, but we'll take a look at it at the belligerents in the conflict. Okay, as you can see, the Castilian Civil War forces are the Henry of Trasmara, which is Henry the Silent. Okay, Henry the Silent. Pardon, sorry, not Henry the Silent. Henry the Second of Henry of Trasmara. But that house goes back to Henry the Silent. But this involves Henry of Trasmara and the Kingdom of France and the Crown of Aragon, which are all influenced by Roman Catholicism, versus the forces of Peter of Castile. Henry of Trasmara is of Castile. Okay? First king of Castile, Leon from the house of Trasmara. This is all resulting from what we call the Castilian Civil War versus Peter of Castile, also of Castile, but with assistance from the Kingdom of England, Kingdom of Norway, Kingdom of Majorca, Emirates of Granada, the Duchess of Aquitaine, and other elite mercenaries. Okay, as you can see. All right, so very important, and all that involved what we call what was where was I at? Spanish Empire. Okay, yeah, right here. Going back here. So I'll leave. I'll show receipts. Okay, I'll show receipts. Spanish Empire. We just read Castilian Civil War. Now we're talking about the Spanish Empire, and it says that the conflict concluded with the Treaty of Utrecht of 713, allowing Philip I, Bourbon, King of Spain, to retain the throne, but resulting in territorial losses for Spain, Gibraltar, Menorca, and Spanish Netherlands. Okay, also in Spanish Italy. So this is very important because at this time, Spanish houses and the English houses is connected in the Castilian Civil War, going all the way back to Edward III, his daughter Joanne. All right, this goes all the way back to the time of the Plantagenet crown. We're going to get to that in a second, but for now, we're going to go to the video. Okay, so let's get it. A lot of people can't see what we see here at the Third Tip English Church of England because you have our eyes to see. You got to see with the eyes of the soul. Now, watch what we see from my interpretation of what it is that we're looking at, or what I should say, looking at and hearing. Can you hear everything, Brother McGarrett, from the House of McGarrett? Can you hear everything, Brother McGarrett?
check this out. I'm going to show you how I afforded this car. Okay, you ready? All right, $118 for.
Can you hear Brother McGarry? All right, let's roll.
Mr. President, did our Prime Minister persuade you not to put tariffs on the UK? And if I may, Prime Minister, do you think that Vladimir Putin is a man who will keep his word? Thanks.
He tried.
So they asked Trump, did Prime Minister Starmer persuade Trump to not put tariffs on the UK? Okay. Prime Minister is the head of state for the United Kingdom. Okay. Once again, Prime Minister Starmer is the head of state for the United Kingdom, overseen by under the authority of the monarch. Okay. Very important that we understand that. Okay. We want to see who has the most authority or who has the most influence over the Prime Minister Starmer. Is it the monarch or is it President Trump? Let's look at it.
He's working hard.
Let's rewind that back.
Okay, and if I may, Prime Minister, do you think that Vladimir Putin is a man who... Mr. President, did our Prime Minister persuade you not to put tariffs on the UK? And if I may, Prime Minister, do you think that Vladimir Putin is a man who will keep his word? Thanks.
He tried. He was working hard, I'll tell you that. He earned whatever the hell they pay him over there. But he tried. I think there's a very good chance that in the case of these two great friendly countries, I think we could very well end up with a real trade deal where the tariffs wouldn't be necessary. We'll see. But he earned whatever they pay him. He earned today. He was working hard at lunch, and I'm very receptive to it. I think in all fairness, in all seriousness, I think we have a very good chance at arriving at a very good deal. JD and Scott and Howard, all the people are working on it, and I think we have a good chance at arriving at a deal that could be terrific.
Thanks for watching. Stay on.
Okay. So we see that President Trump said Prime Minister tried to persuade him to not impose tariffs on the UK. Let's just hear that one more time for the record.
Mr. President, did our Prime Minister persuade you not to put tariffs on the UK? And if I may, Prime Minister, do you think that Vladimir Putin is a man who will keep his word? Thanks.
He tried. He was working hard, I'll tell you that. He earned whatever the hell they pay him over there. But he tried. I think there's a very good chance that in the case of these two great friendly countries, I think we could very well end up with a real trade deal where the tariffs wouldn't be necessary. We'll see. But he earned whatever they pay him. He earned today. He was working hard at lunch, and I'm very receptive to it. I think in all fairness, in all seriousness, I think we have a very good chance at arriving at a very good deal. JD and Scott and Howard, all the people are working on it, and I think we have a good chance at arriving at a deal that could be terrific.
Thanks for watching.
Right. So this is very important to consider. Okay. This is very important to consider. All right. In regards to the tariffs affecting the UK. All right. Why is this important? Let's see. We know that UK and United Kingdom had a relationship going back to 17 1776. Okay? They have a relationship going back to 1776. All right? Let's just look at it. Okay, they got a relation going back to 1776. All right. Relations between the United Kingdom and the United States have ranged from military opposition to close allyship since 1776. The 13 colonies succeeded from the Kingdom of Great Britain and declared its independence in 1776. All right, Great Britain created the Treaty of Paris in 1783, but yet the United States and the UK remain firm allies going back to 1776. We know that under New Jersey's Constitution in 1776, under Article 22, it was based upon the common law of England, and Article 23, that they all took a vow to uphold not just the common law of England, but if there was ever a reconciliation with Great Britain, that charter, i.e., that constitution in 1776 will be null and void. But yet, United Kingdom and United States got relations going back to 1776, even after they declared their independence from Great Britain in 1776. This is madness, brothers and sisters. This is madness. Why is this so? Because the power has transferred from the king to the president. Because the president is the head of state. I mean, president is the head of state, and the king is the head of state. We know the monarch is head of the government, and we know that the president is head of the government. But we see somewhere down the line that the positions of the sovereign power has switched places based upon what we've seen in the video from Prime Minister, okay, Starmer, as well as President Trump. All right, because Prime Minister is subject to the wills of the king or the so-called monarch of the United Kingdom. Okay, he has to follow what he say. Okay, and that was the president say. But yet, the prime minister is looking to assistance from President Trump to not be affected by the tariffs imposed by the congressional as well as the executive power that was imposed upon the tenure of Donald Trump. Okay, very, very, very important for you to understand this. All right, very important for you to understand that. So they do have a relation. Let's confirm this relation in another video. This special relationship that they have. You're absolutely right. A titular king. Let's prove it.
Minister, did you discuss with President Trump his repeated statements of desire to annex Canada? And has the king expressed any concern over the president's apparent desire to remove one of his realms?
Okay, so one of the reporters asked the prime minister, was the king aware of Donald Trump's plan to annex Canada, which is a Commonwealth country and is a part of the rim of what we call the United Kingdom, okay, under the British crown. The British crown is rooted in the English crown. They're just overseeing it as a result of the transition of government going all the way back to the Glorious Revolution. Okay? Going all the way back to the Glorious Revolution, and even before that, 1603. Okay? Because that's key. We know under New Jersey's Constitution, it speaks about the crown reconciliation to the government that was already established here in New Jersey under His Majesty's Council called New Jersey Provincial Council in 1702. All right? These were instructions given to Viscount Cornbury, okay, who was appointed by King William III, the predecessor for Queen Anne, okay? Very, very important that we understand who the main key players are. And William III is the main key player in this game, all right? So, once again, he asks Starmer, the Prime Minister of the UK, what did King Charles, the King of the UK, think about Donald Trump planning to annex Canada from the King as being part of the King's Realm? Okay? As being part of the King's Realm. Now, this is very important because this involves the King's radical title. We're going to look at it in a second. I hope I remember to go to it. The King's radical title over possession of territory that are overseas. Okay, very important. Very important. Let's continue with the video. So let's go back over it a little bit, back it up.
King expressed any concern over the president's apparent desire to remove one of his realms from his country.
So I'll go ahead with the first part. The tariffs are necessary because we've been treated very unfairly by many, many countries, including our friends, friend and foe. But we've been treated very unfairly in trade at levels that nobody's really ever seen before, and especially under the Biden administration, they really took advantage of the United States. I put massive tariffs on China during my 4 years. We had the best economy in the history of our country. We're probably the best economy, maybe the best economy in the history of the world. And I used tariffs to even things up. And in particular with China, we took in hundreds of billions of dollars and we had no inflation. And it's a myth. It's a myth that's put out there by foreign countries that really don't like paying tariffs, and especially to even up. So we've been treated badly by a lot. We're using tariffs. And I find, and you just have to look at the numbers, but I find that it's not about inflation. It's about fairness, and the inflation for us has not existed. And I don't think it's going to exist. We're going to bring our car industry back. We're going to bring our chips back. We're going to bring so many things back to our country, including pharmaceuticals and drugs. And the thing that's going to get us there is tariffs. And I say often, it's my favorite word in the dictionary, but I always preface that by saying now, because I got into a lot of trouble with the fake news where they say that's not good. So I say God, love, family, wife, they're all my favorite words, but tariff is about number 4 or 5 on the list. But I will tell you, it's going to make our country rich, and it's going to stop us from being a laughing stock all over the world, because we have been taken advantage of like no country has ever been taken advantage of. Thank you very much. And
look, we had a really good discussion, a productive discussion, a good discussion, as a result of which our teams are now going to be working together on an economic deal. Our team is going to be working together on security in Ukraine. You mentioned Canada. I think you're trying to find a divide between us that doesn't exist. We're the closest of nations, and we had very good discussions today, but we didn't discuss Canada.
thank you.
Once again, Donald Trump just shut him down when he went to ask about the question that was posed about the annexation of Canada from the King's Realm. Donald Trump shut that question down because Donald Trump is not the king. All right? Donald Trump is not the king. Let's go back and play that one more time.
One of those crowns I have here fell, I put some like kind of a cement myself to put it back in.
To further combat inflation, we will not.
Bear with me.
Please.
Play it one more time.
Today, you told me that you believe that foreign countries.
I'm gonna run it from the beginning now. That same one we just watched. February 27, 2025.
Tariffs, but Americans who are concerned about higher prices believe, as most people do, that they're paid by consumers and importers when they import things into this country. Can you explain how you came to this belief that foreign governments are paying tariffs? And for the Prime Minister, did you discuss with President Trump his repeated statements of desire to annex Canada? And has the King expressed any concern over the president's apparent desire to remove one of his realms from his control?
So I'll go ahead. The first part, the tariffs are necessary because we've been treated very unfairly by many, many countries, including our friends, friend and foe. But we've been treated very unfairly in trade at levels that nobody's really ever seen before, and especially under the Biden administration, they really took advantage of the United States. I put massive tariffs on China during my 4 years. We had the best economy in the history of our country. Probably the best economy, maybe the best economy in the history of the world. And I used tariffs to even things up. And in particular with China, we took in hundreds of billions of dollars, and we have inflation. And it's a myth. It's a myth that's put out there by foreign countries that really don't like paying tariffs, and especially to even up. So we've been treated badly by a lot. We're using tariffs. And I find, and you just have to look at the numbers, but I find that it's not about inflation. It's about fairness, and the inflation for us has not existed. And I don't think it's going to exist. We're going to bring our car industry back. We're going to bring our chips back. We're going to bring so many things back to our country, including pharmaceuticals and drugs. And the thing that's going to get us there is tariffs. And I say often it's my favorite word in the dictionary, but I always preface it by saying now, because I got into a lot of trouble with the fake news where they say that's not good. So I say God, love, family, wife, they're all my favorite words, but tariff is about number 4 or 5 on the list. But I will tell you, it's going to make our country rich, and it's going to stop us from being a laughing stock all over the world, because we have been taken advantage of like no country has ever been taken advantage of. Thank you very much.
Yes, we have. He's not lying about that statement. We have been taken advantage of. I'm going to show you receipts. All right? Receipts.
Look, we had a really good discussion, a productive discussion, a good discussion, as a result of which our teams are now going to be working together.
He want that question answered.
Our teams are working together on security in Ukraine. You mentioned Canada. I think you're trying to find a divide between us that doesn't exist. We're the closest of nations. And
He said a divide doesn't exist. He said there is no divide. Okay? That's why Donald Trump told him to shut up. You know what I'm saying? Donald Trump showed him to shut up. Did you see that, Brother McGarrel? Did you see that? All right, we're going to go right back here. Give me a thumbs up if you caught that.
Of nations, and we had very good discussions today, but we didn't
That's
discuss
enough.
Canada.
Thank you. Please.
Exist. We're the closest of Canada, I think you're trying to find a divide between us that doesn't.
She said, you're trying to find a divide between us, but there is none.
Thank you.
He was telling too much. I'm going to play it one more time.
Exist. We're the closest of nations, and we had very. You mentioned Canada. I think you're trying to find a divide between us that doesn't exist. We're the closest of nations, and we had very good discussions today. But we did.
You hear that? He said, you're trying to find a divide, but there is none because we're the closest of nations. Okay. All right. They are of the same nation. He was telling too much. All right. Because of the United States relations. Watch Trump tell him to shut up. Oh, yeah. I'm about to expose all this. Went too far.
Ukraine. You mentioned Canada. I think you're trying to find a divide between us that doesn't exist. We're the closest of nations, and we had very good discussions today. But we did discuss Canada.
Thank you. Please. Go ahead.
He told everything right there. All right. So we are the same nation. Okay. We had relations going all the way back to 1776. Okay. 1776. They had relations going back that far, my brothers and sisters. All right. That far. All involving trade war, because we know the UK is Anglo, and we understand that the UK and Netherlands had an alliance prior to the United States and the UK. All right. Very important to understand who the players are on the board. Matter of fact, let's look at the playing board. Okay. Let's look at the actual playing board. All right. I kind of updated it and made some references to it so that we can identify with some sound type of comprehension. All right. New Jersey's Trade 2013 PDF copy. The evidence shows that New Jersey is a subsidiary of the Crown of England, not the United Kingdom, since 1702. Once again, the evidence on this record shows that New Jersey is a subsidiary of the Crown of England, not the United Kingdom, since 1702. Let's go to the proof. New Jersey's Provincial Council. This was the seat of government, all right, of the Kingdom of England, all right. Though it was under the monarch Queen Anne, it was under the government of the Kingdom of England, because they did not unify as a unified government polity till 1707. Okay? Until 1707. We know that England, Ireland, and Scotland had separate governments, had separate polities until 1707. So we're talking about the separate polities or the separate governments known as Parliament being overseen by Scottish king. Such queen is Queen Anne in 1702, which was His Majesty's Council for the province of New Jersey, which was the upper half of New Jersey legislative under colonial rule until it was replaced by New Jersey Legislative Council under New Jersey's Constitution in 1776. And we know that the United Kingdom at this time in 1776 was known as Great Britain, had an alliance with the United States at that time known as the colonies, and the government functioning on this land was His Majesty's Council, with an itinerant court sitting at either Burlington, New Jersey, or Perth Amboy, New Jersey, where we now located. Okay, we're right here in Perth Amboy, New Jersey. All right, and the political group and the list of term of those members, all right, chiefs are what we call justiciar, or what we call what they call them, chief ministers, okay, of the crown. Okay, very important. They were all given instructions from the Parliament of Great Britain, okay? Not from the Parliament of Great Britain, from the Parliament of England being overseen by a Scottish queen known as Queen Anne, because the Provincial Council was established in 1702 upon surrender by the properties of East Jersey and those of West Jersey as the right of government to Queen Anne. Anne's government united the two colonies as the province of New Jersey as a royal colony, okay? A royal colony of the Kingdom of England, not Great Britain, okay? Not United Kingdom, because United Kingdom and Great Britain till the unification of 1707. Okay, a lot went down between 1702 and 1707, and even prior to that. We're going to discuss that today. The instructions from Queen Anne to Viscount Cornbury, the first royal governor of New Jersey, outlined a vision of power system which allowed for an overlap of the executive, legislative, and judicial authority, and provided for a bicameral legislative consisting of a council and a general assembly. Okay, this is in 1702 as the body of politics and the territorial known as New Jersey. Okay, we must understand that. So we're not talking about over there in what they now call UK or Great Britain. But that didn't come until 1707. We're in 1702. All right. And the government of England is right here. Okay. In New Jersey. Very important to understand that. All right. To understand that. So since we know the government in New Jersey was here in 1702, known as the Crown, and we know that the Great Britain, now known as the UK relations, goes back to 1776, when it was now replaced with the New Jersey Legislative Council under New Jersey's Constitution, where it calls for a reconciliation with the Crown under Great Britain, which didn't come till 1707, because you can't get to 1776 until you get to 1707. Okay, and 1707 was the Treaty of Union, or what we call the Acts of Union, contrast to what we call the Union of the Crown, which goes back to 1603. Dates are very important, my brothers and sisters. Dates are very, very important. So we know that the United States relations goes back to 1776. Okay. 1776. All right. And when you're talking about United Kingdom, you're talking about the Anglo. Okay. Talk about the Anglo. United States is talking about the colonies. This is very, very important to understand. So now when we go back to the actual trade wars that's going on now between the United States and the rest of the world, with the assistance of what we call UK, as we've seen from the demonstrations we've seen on the platform involving Prime Minister, okay, Starmer, as well as President Trump, we see that apparently that this trade war is affecting the whole world. And when we look at the United States and United Kingdom relationship going back to 1776, that involves all the founding fathers, because they were around at that time in 1776, and involves a particular territorial in 1776. And that involves where the government was in 1776 before the United States or the colonies got their independence. Because we know, based upon the proof of His Majesty's Council in 1702, that this was in fact the King's government over here in what we now call North America versus what you now call Great Britain. And that government that was established in North America in 1702 is still here. Okay? It's still here. Starmer just said it when it says you're looking for um, a boundary, which no boundary exists between us, or a border. We have always been connected in some form. That form is by way of what we call the law. Okay? So we see the United Kingdom and the United States relations goes back to 1776. And we know that this involves a trade war. And we know that the trade war goes back to the first Anglo and Dutch War. Okay? The first Anglo and Dutch War. So that does not involve the United States, but it does involve the UK and the Dutch. Okay? It does involve the UK and the Dutch. That's very, very important to make that sequence of that connection to that sequence of chain of events. Okay? Because we know that the Anglo-Dutch trade war goes back to the time of the 16th and 17th century, through the time of the Reformation, was at the same time of the Glorious Revolution, which was at the same time of Queen William III, who was the predecessor to Queen Anne, the successor, as queen of what we call Scotland, but looking over or overseeing the English throne, because they were not unified until 1707, and if they were not unified in 1707, then the government, i.e. Parliament, has always remained separate, as we see established under the New Jersey Provincial Council, which was called His Majesty's Council, which was under the Crown. So it could not possibly over in what we call United Kingdom or Great Britain, because Starmer just said that we have there is no boundaries between us. We just seen there was a relation in 1776, and we know UK was here before the United States, because the United States was in fact colonies subject to the authority of the Crown. What crown are we talking about? We must be talking about the Crown of England, because there was no unification or through the Act of Union of 1707, which we're going to talk about in a second. Okay? You must know your stuff. So the House of Habsburg, okay? The House of Habsburg is very important, because the House of Habsburg is a Spanish house, okay? It's a Spanish house. So before we get to the Spanish and Netherlands or Dutch house, we have to make the connection between the UK and the Dutch or Netherlands based upon their relations going back in time. So let's do that. Netherlands and the United Kingdom's relationship. Let's look at it. Netherlands and United Kingdom. All right. Netherlands and United Kingdom. History. Everyone pay close attention. In the mid-17th century, after the Dutch had made peace in the War of Independence from Spain, i.e. through the Spanish conquest, and we deal with Roman Catholics, okay? Before you understand that, you got to understand the Habsburg and Netherlands connection. But we're dealing with the Netherlands and United Kingdom connection right now, because they were preceded, the successors of them was the United Kingdom and the United States relations, okay? All involving trade. Are you keeping up with me, Brother McGarrell? Are you keeping up, brother? Give me a thumbs up in the chat line. Because if you are, you're going to be the smartest person on earth after this one. In the mid-17th century, after the Dutch made peace in the War of Independence from Spain, talking about under the influence of the Roman Catholics, Isabella of Spain and Ferdinand, and the former Kingdom of England, Scotland, and Ireland were being united under Cromwell's Commonwealth. Oliver St. John was sent to Holland to moot the possibilities of unifying the Dutch Republic with the Commonwealth, as fellow Protestant seafaring republics thought the plan did not come to pass. So we're talking about United Kingdom, also called Great Britain, also called Great Britain at this time. Not even talking about England, because the England was here prior to their creation, okay? Going all the way back to what we call 9 884, okay? And parts of 889 due to unification of the Anglo-Saxon tribe going back to Alfred the Great, the King of Wessex, okay? It goes on to say that the Anglo and Dutch wars, all related to Netherlands and United Kingdom, Great Britain, Netherlands, or the Dutch, whatever name you choose to use, the Anglo and Dutch wars. So that means that the Anglo and Dutch wars were battles between England and the Kingdom of Great Britain. Did you hear that? The Anglo and Dutch wars were battles between England, okay, and the Kingdom of Great Britain. So England and the Great Britain is Ireland and Scotland versus England. Once again, the Anglo-Dutch War is England versus Ireland and Scotland because they themselves make up Great Britain due to unification in 1707, and they all have kindred ties to the Dutch Republic. Okay? Yes, they do. And if you understand the first, second, and third, and fourth Anglo-Dutch War involving trades, you will see why. Okay? Which we're going to do today. All right? So this involves what we call the Dutch Republic. The Dutch Republic is called Netherlands, and Netherlands has connection to the United Kingdom, and that's all due what they said Great Britain. And Great Britain didn't come into the unification of 1707. They unified England, Ireland, and Scotland. Okay, and we know the government's not over there because in 1702 the government of the Crown of England was right here in New Jersey. Okay, all right, we know that from Queen Anne, and we know that from William Viscount Cornbury, who was appointed by William III, the so-called King of England. Okay, let's get to it, brothers and sisters. Netherlands. So let's look at let's see where I want to go. The Habsburg and Netherlands connection. Okay? The Habsburg and Netherlands connection. Because we know Habsburg is the Spanish connection because Habsburg is the cadet branch of the Spanish Empire underneath Transmoria. Okay? This is very, very, very important. We know Netherlands is the Dutch, Habsburg is the Spanish, and United Kingdom is Great Britain. All right? Very, very, very important to understand that. But we're not talking about the relationship between United Kingdom and United States. We're not talking about the relationship between United Kingdom and Netherlands. We're talking about the relationship between Netherlands and the Habsburg, which we know that goes around the time of the Glorious Revolution, as well as the time of the Age of Discovery, all under the Spanish conquest, all dealing with the Spanish successorship of the original Spaniards known as the Castilians. Okay? Ain't nobody going to give it to you like I'm giving to you, brothers and sisters. Let's get it. History of the Habsburg and the Netherlands connection. All right? History. Upon the death of Mary of Burgundy, all right, in 1482, her substantial possession, including the Burgundian Netherlands, passed to her son Philip the Handsome, who married Joanne of Castile, daughter of Isabel of Castile and Ferdinand III of Aragon, through his father, Maximilian I of the Holy Roman Empire. This is very, very, very important to understand based upon the Spanish connection to the Netherlands connection. Okay? Once again, the Spanish connection to the Netherlands connection, because this involves Joanne of Castile, all right, Isabella of Castile, and Isabella of Castile and Ferdinand were the ones who started the Spanish conquest here in North America. Okay? That's very important. So who is Philip the Handsome? Let's see. Philip the Handsome, also called the Fair, was the ruler of Burgundian Netherlands. So he was Dutch and titular Duke of Burgundy from 1482 to 1506, as well as the first Habsburg King of Castile. So he had some Dutch in him and he had some Spanish in him by way of the Roman Catholic influence over the Castilian branches who existed there prior to the Roman Catholic influence, all right? Because we know that the Spanish Empire was under the house of Trajamora, Habsburg, Capitan, Berlioz, and we're going to go through it in a second, all right? So we see Philip of Handsome was under Netherlands, i.e. the Dutch, and we see that his wife, all right, Isabella, Joanne of Castile, all right, Joanne Castile was married, who she was married to, all right, and she was the daughter of Isabella of Castile, all right, who started the Spanish conquest over here, okay, and who conquered the Aztecs, the Mayans, the Incas, and everybody else who came after them. All right, prior to that, the original inhabitants of that was the original Berbers that they now identify as the original Olmecs. Okay, so who is Joanne of Castile? She was the daughter of Isabella of Castile and Ferdinand of Aragon. All Roman Catholics, my brothers and sisters. All right, all Roman Catholics. This must be understood. If not, you will be lost in the sauce. All right, this is just from history, okay? This is just from history. Let's see here. Where else I want to go? That takes me here to the Spanish Empire, okay? The Spanish Empire, very important. The Spanish Empire, all right, at the age of discovery, started from Isabella of Castile and Ferdinand, who Joanne married, what's his name? What was his name? Philip of Handsome of Netherlands, okay? So Philip of Handsome of Netherlands, which was the Dutch, was married to Joanne of Castile, a Spanish Roman Catholic, who was the daughter of Isabella of Castile and Ferdinand, who started the Spanish conquest. Okay, we must understand, and they were part of what we call the Spanish Empire from 1492 through the age of discovery, through the age of the New World. Okay, we must comprehend what's going on, and those were made up of Roman Catholic, Spanish, and Dutch and Frankish descendants, because as we can see, the membership is Trajamara, Habsburg, Capitan dynasty, Bourbon House of Bourbons, House of Berlioz and Burgundy, House of Quebec, House of Bonaparte, and House of Savoy. These membership houses had some type of connection or connection by way of either some relation or opposition to the Plantagenet crown. Okay, all of these houses, all right, and going back to the Plantagenet crown, who are kings of England, going back to Edward III, my brothers and sisters. Edward III, the son of Edward I, the second, the son of Edward I, the son of Henry III, the son of John, the son of Henry II, the son of Godfrey, the fifth kind of man Jew, son of Folk, the ruler of Jerusalem. Okay, so Trajamara, Habsburg, and we know Habsburg and Netherlands had the connection as a result of the marriage between Isabella Castile's daughter and Philip, okay, of Netherlands. Okay, but the Habsburg is of a Spanish house. Okay, along with the other memberships of the Spanish houses known as Trajamara. Okay, this is very important. What is Trajamara? Let's look at that. House of Trajamara. Very important to know your houses. Very important. House of Trajamara was a royal dynasty which first ruled in the crown of Castile. You hear that? Once again, Roman Catholic though, And we know that Habsburg, as well as Capitan, Balios, Burgundy, as well as all the houses, originated as a result of the influence of Roman Catholicism. Okay, but we're specifically talking about the House of Trastamara, which was on top of the Spanish Empire going back to 1492 when they invaded the Spanish Empire when it was ruled by the Castilians. Okay, which were aligned with the English kings. Okay, going back to the Plantagenet crown, who were in fact the English kings. So let's prove it. The House of Trastamara was a royal dynasty which first ruled the crown of Castile and then expanded to the crown of Aragon from late Middle Ages to the early modern period. They were an illegitimate cadet line. You hear that? Illegitimate cadet line of the House of Burgundy, which is part of the Spanish Empire, who acceded to the power of Castile. In 1369, as a result of the victory of Henry of Trastamara, that's Henry of Silent. Where are we at? Right there, Henry, right there, Henry, King of Castile of Trastamara. All right there. All right. So the victory of Henry of Trastamara over his half brother Peter the First in 1351 to 1369, and the Castilian Civil War, in which nobility and to a lesser extent the clergy had played a decisive role in favor of the former. Okay, so we're talking about a conflict between Henry of Trastamara, a Roman Catholic Castilian, and Philip, a Castilian going back to the Plantagenet crown and the kings of Spain. Okay, we must understand that because we understand under the Roman Catholic influence, under the Spanish Empire, you got all these houses or memberships that were influenced by Roman Catholic. We have to make that disconnection. Okay, so let's go to the Castilian Civil War. The Castilian Civil War. The Castilian Civil War was a war of succession over the crown of Castile that lasted from 1351 to 1369. The conflict started after the death of Alfonso the 11th of Castile in March 1350. It became part of a larger conflict then raging between the Kingdom of England and the Kingdom of France. That's going back to the Spanish War Empire, which the Kingdom of France was a part of, as what we know, the Capitan, the House of Balios, the House of Capet. These are all part of the Kingdom of France, influenced by French Roman Catholics going back to the Nordic Vikings, okay? Very important, that made their way up to what we call the 100-Year Wars. The 100 Wars was preceded by the War of the Roses, started by Edward III, which this war is affiliated with. Okay, let's see. It became part of a larger conflict then raged between the Kingdom of England. So now the Castilians are aligning themselves with the Kingdom of England as a result of Roman Catholics coming from the Kingdom of France. All right, we must comprehend what's going on. The 100-Year War, it was fought primarily in Castile and the coastal waters between the local and allied forces of the reigning king, Peter of Castile, and his illegitimate brother Henry of Trastamara over the right of the crown. We know Trastamara was a part of the Spanish crown because we understand that Isabella of Castile's daughter married who? Somebody from Netherlands. All right, where is it at? Habsburg, Netherlands, right here. Right here. History. Upon the death of Marion Burgundy, her substantial possessions included Burgundian Netherlands, and we know Burgundians is part of the Spanish Empire, and Netherlands is part of the Dutch Empire, passed to her son Philip the Handsome. Okay? Philip the Handsome, a king of Castile. Okay? But yet they were connected to Netherlands. Okay? Which goes back to where we are? The House of Trastamara. Right here. Henry of Trastamara, King of Castile. All right, so you see the connection. The problem is the Roman Catholic influence upon these houses is just what we're trying to get to. So we see that Henry of Trastamara was the half brother of Peter I, which all took a part in the Castilian Civil War. Let's go to that right now. Are you keeping up, Brother McGarrell? Please let me know. And this was part of the 100-Year War. Once again, this was part of the 100-Year War, which was preceded by the War of the Roses. Okay? As we can see, Henry Transmora, the Kingdom of France, and the Crown of Aragon. Okay? And we know the House of Transmara was united between Henry Transmara and Joanne of Castile, the daughter of Isabella of Castile of the Spanish Empire, which involved all these houses. Okay? The belligerent parties in this Castilian Civil War involves Henry of Transmara, thank you, Kingdom of France, and Crown of Aragon. The belligerents on the other side is Peter of Castile, also of Castilian. All right? King of England, King of Norway, Kingdom of Majorca, Emirate of Granada, Duchess of Aquitaine. Okay? Peter Castile and Edward the Black were the commanders and leaders. Okay? This is very, very, very important. Because who was Peter of Castile? Let's see. Peter of Castile. Peter Castile, he was to be married to his contemporary Joanne, the second and favorite daughter of who? King Edward III of England. However, on their way to Castile, she and her retinue traveled through the cities infested with the Black Death, ignoring townspeople who were warned them not to enter their settlement. Since the plague had not yet entered England, it is likely that they underestimated the danger. Joanne soon contracted the disease and she died. Joanne was from the house of Plantagenet, brothers and sisters, from the house of Plantagenet. Her father was Edward III, okay? Her father was Edward III. So Peter of Castile was married to an English king. You hear that? Was married to an English king from the house of Plantagenet. You can't make this up. You can't make it up. All right? His predecessor was Henry II, King of England. I'm pardon myself. Yeah. All right, let's go back. Back to the Castilian War. So we see Peter of Castile, all right, who married Joanne, the daughter of Edward III. Now, who is Edward the Black Prince? Let's look at him. They didn't say Edward the White Prince, it said Edward the Black Prince. Edward of Woodstock, lately known as the Black Prince, was the eldest son and heir apparent of King Edward III of England. He died before his father, and so his son Richard II succeeded to the throne. Instead, Edward nevertheless earned distinction as one of the most successful English commanders during the 100-Year War. So he was the son of Edward III, okay? And he was the commander in the 100-Year War. This is very, very important because Edward III established the War of the Roses, okay? Which is a part of the United Kingdom's history. They're not telling you that, but it's a part of the United Kingdom's history. Okay? We must understand the timeline. Because I always say, time never was when we were not. If the life of time begin, the time will become when we will be no more. History of Great Britain. Let's see, right here. United Kingdom. The UK has been inhabited continuously since the Neolithic time, so they kept records. In AD 43, the Roman conquest of Britain began, so they kept records. The Roman departure was followed by the Anglo-Saxon settlement, so they kept records. In 1066, the Norman conquered England, so they kept records. With the end of the War of Roses, the English state established and began to grow and power resulted from the 16th century in the annexation of Wales and the establishment of the British Empire. Did you hear that? Did y'all hear that? The establishment of the British Empire. Over the course of the 17th century, the role of the British monarchy was reduced, particularly as a result of the English Civil War. In 1707, which was the Act of Union or the Treaty of Union, the Kingdom of England and the Kingdom of Scotland united under the Treaty of Union to create the Kingdom of Great Britain. Okay? Now, why is this important? Because at this time, this is where that goddamn office prime minister came from. Okay? In the Gregorian era, the office of prime minister became established. Did y'all hear that? Did you hear that? The same prime ministers that you see speaking to Trump, the same prime ministers that you see speaking for Canada, the same prime minister that you see speaking for China, Japan, and every other country that's represented by a prime minister, which are head of states, all right, they are subject to the origin and the creation of the office of prime minister, which was predated by chief minister. Okay? We must understand what's going on. Let's go back to where I was. Edward the Black Prince. So as we can see, Edward the Black Prince and Peter of Castile were on the same side. And we know that he married Joanne, and Joanne was the daughter of Edward III, and he was also a son of Edward III, probably from different wives. All right, so back then they kept the marriage in the family, but distant family. Okay, we must understand what's going on. All right, so when we go back to the War of the Roses, since Edward III set the precedence for the 100-Year War, let's go back into, as we said, what was that? We were just at United Kingdom. And United Kingdom was associated with the War of the Roses. And the War of the Roses, let's click that real quick, and that's going to bring us to Edward III. So the War of the Roses was also a part of the Castilian Civil War. Okay? Very, very, very important. Because we see that Peter married Joanne, which was a Peter married, what was her name? Let's go back. Edward the Black Prince. So Peter married the daughter of Edward III. I think her name was Joan. Okay. He was to be married to his contemporary Joanne, the second favorite daughter of King Edward III. He also was the son of King Edward III. All right. All involved in the Castilian Civil War, which was also a part of what we call the War of the Roses. Okay. Very, very important because they were all family. Joanne was the Plantagenet queen. Okay. The War of the Roses, known as the time in the following century as the Civil Wars, were a series of civil wars fought over the English throne, the crown, from 1455 to 1487. The wars were fought between supporters of the House of Lancaster and the House of York, to two rival cadet branches of the royal house of Plantagenet. The conflict resulted in the end of the Lancaster male line in 1471, leaving the Tudor family to inherit their claim to the throne through the female line. Conflicts which largely brought to an end upon the union of the two houses through marriage, creating the Tudor dynasty that would subsequently rule England. All right, so this is where King James got his start as a result of the House of Tudors by way of Elizabeth the First. All right. That brings us here to the glorious revolution. The glorious revolution. How many of us know about the glorious revolution? The Glorious Revolution, also known as the Revolution in 1688, was the disposition of James II of England in the 7th in November in 1688. He was replaced by his daughter Mary II and her daughter husband William of Orange. Okay, two very, very important figures. We only concerned with William of Orange because William of Orange appointed Viscount Cornbury, who was the royal governor under Queen Anne, who succeeded William of Orange. All right, all descended from Netherlands, i.e., the Dutch, because we know that the Dutch and Netherlands had a relations. Okay, they had relations. So William III of Orange, a nephew of James, who thereby had interest to the throne, irrespective of his marriage to Mary, his first cousin, the two ruled as joint monarchs of England, Scotland, and Ireland. Okay, not actually monarch, but just overseeing because there was no unification till 1707, which we'll see in a second, until Mary's death in 1694, when William became ruler in his own right. Jacobitism, the political movement that aimed to restore the exiled James or his descendants to the House of Stuart to the throne, persisted into the late 18th century. William's invasion was the last successful invasion of England. So yet he invaded England, okay? He's invaded England. We know England was here, or the crown was here in 1702. It was here prior to 1702. It was just being subject to the prescription sovereignty of people who claim to be sovereigns. Okay, very important for you to understand that. Let's get to it. Background. Despite his Catholicism, James became king in 1685. This King James II, okay? Not William, but King James II. With widespread backing in all three kingdoms, in June 1685, quickly crushed Protestant rising in Scotland, also as well as in England, but was forced into exile less than 4 years later. Modern historians argue James failed to appreciate how much world power relied on support from the landed gentry, and the loss of that support fatally damaged his regime. The vast majority of gentry in England and Scotland was Protestant, while even in large Catholic Ireland, a disproportionate number were members of the Protestant Church of Ireland. Although, while to accept James' personal religious belief, his backers did not only so long as he maintained the primacy of the Protestant Church of England and the Church of Scotland. When his policies appeared to undermine the existing political religious order, the result was to alienate his English and Scottish supporters and destabilize Ireland. Okay, what else? Let's read a little bit more. Stored political ideology of Jacobism derived from James VI of Scotland and the first king of England, who in 1603 had created a vision of centralized state run by a monarch whose authority assumed to have come from God, and where the functions of parliament was simply to obey God. Disputes over the relationship between king and parliament led to the War of the Three Kingdoms, continued after the 1660 Stuart Restoration. Charles II came to rely on the royal prerogative, since measures passed in this way could be withdrawn when he decided rather than parliament. However, it could not be used for major legislation or taxation. So once again, under Jacobism, King James VI of Scotland, and now called himself the first king of England, in 1603 created a vision. It did not come to fruition, but it was a vision that of a centralized state ran under the divine right of kings, okay? All right, which governed the realms that were governed under the three kingdoms, England, Ireland, and Scotland, but separately because they did not unify to what? Everyone said, 1707. How we know it? Let's prove it. Union of the Crowns. I am a scholar. Would you read Brother McGarry? Okay. Very important. How many of you heard about the Union of the Crowns? The Union of the Crowns was the ascension of James VI of Scotland to the throne of England as James I and the practical unification of some functions such as overseas diplomacy. You hear that? Now he was the king of Scotland, and Union of the Crown was to proclaim on the divine rights of king, known as his spiritual ideology as Jacobism, okay, who declared himself as the King of England, okay? Yes, yes, sir. It's called Inquisition Postmortem. Well said, Brother McGraw. So the Union of Crown was the ascension of King James VI of Scotland to the throne of the Kingdom of England as the first Scottish king to sit on the King of England. Not that he was, in fact, an English king, but he was the first Scottish king to sit on the Kingdom of England. And he wanted to unify that ascension by way of unifying the Scottish crown with the English crown, but none such thing had ever came to fruition. All right? I'm not saying that. Let's read it for ourselves. Union of Crown was the ascension of James VI of Scotland. You hear that? Not England. To the throne of the Kingdom of England as James I and the practical unification of some functions such as overseas diplomacy of the two separate realms under a single individual on the 21st of March in 1603. It followed the death of James' cousin Elizabeth I of England, the last monarch from the house of the Tudor dynasty. Right? The union was personal or dynastic, with the crown of England and the crown of Scotland remaining both distinct and separate despite James' best effort to create a new imperial throne. So they remained separate until 1707. And if this is the case, that meant that the crown was not just here in 1702, it was also here in 1603. It was also here during the time of the House of Tudors, because you have to trace it back to the Parliament of England, not the Parliament of Scotland, not the Parliament of Ireland, because it did not unify until the Acts of Union of 1707. So let's read it again and wait. The union was a personal and dynastic with the crown of England and the crown of Scotland, remaining both distinct and separate despite James' best effort to create a new imperial throne. England and Scotland continue as two separate states sharing a monarch. So they shared the monarch who directed their domestic and foreign policies, trade, along with Ireland until the Acts of Union of 1707, during the reign of the last Stuart monarch, who? Queen Anne. So Queen Anne set up shop here right in New Jersey before 1707, okay? Queen Anne ruled till 1714, but yet the English crown remained separate, distinct in capacity and in overstanding, okay? We must understand how important this fact is. Okay? Because if the unification of England and Scotland and Ireland didn't come till 1707 and 1801, with the United Kingdom coming to existence, then how can King Charles be the King of England? He's not the King of England. He's not the King of Scotland. He's not the King of Ireland, because if he was, then he would not have, Donald Trump would not have the authority to annex Canada, because Canada is a extension of the King's radical title. Okay? The King's radical title. How many of you heard of that? The King's radical title. So that means the prime minister is not who he is. The prime minister is not who he is. So let's look at the prime minister. Okay? Because apparently Donald Trump shut him down. All right? Donald Trump shut him down. We know that the prime ministers didn't serve until the Gregorian era. All right? So let's look at prime minister. Okay? Let's look at prime minister of the United Kingdom. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything. All right, here we go. Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. History. That's all you want to deal with, history of the office. The position of Prime Minister was not created but evolved slowly and organically over 300 years due to numerous acts of Parliament. You hear that? So what Parliament created the office or the tenure of Prime Minister? Because it went through innovation and change, okay? It evolved from acts of Parliament. Who acts of Parliament? Was it English Parliament? Was it Scottish Parliament? Was it our what we call Ireland's Parliament? It had to be somebody's Parliament, okay? So therefore, the office is rarely found in any statute, and according to the Political Constitutional Reform Committee in 2014, it is impossible to point to a single point in history when the post was created or even a decision to create it. Okay? Prime Minister. The 17th century saw a transformative period in British history. The union of the Scottish and English crowns, followed by the War of the Three Kingdoms, including the English Civil War, saw the final conflict between the monarchy and the parliaments over governance, culminating in the end of the absolute monarchy with the execution of Charles I in 1649. And in 1660, the monarchy was restored with the assistance of Charles II, signaling a return to the royal rule, but with growing limitations on the monarchy itself. The Glorious Revolution led to the disposition of the Catholic James II and the establishment of William III and Mary II as a constitutional monarchy. Okay, so we see the change of event. After a series of bills passed by the parliament, such as the Bill of Rights, Claim of Right in 1689, the powers of the monarch was reduced, being replaced by the power of Parliament. The Bill of Rights established the supremacy of Parliament over who? The Crown, and set up certain civil rights. This is the result of the creation of the office of what we call Prime Minister. Okay? Prime Minister, because the King Charles III is not the Crown. Okay? I am the Crown. Okay? Corporation so. All right? Corporation so. This is very important to understand. Why? Let's see. Chief Minister. List of English chief ministers. All right. Chief minister is a term used retroactively by historians to describe service of the English monarch who presided over the government of England. And after 1707, you hear that? Great Britain. So chief ministers is a term retroactively by historians to describe service of the English monarch who presided over the government, i.e. polity, of England. And after 1707, it was called Great Britain. Before that, before 1721, chief minister was usually one of the great officers of the state, but it was not usual for there to be no chief, but it was not unusual for there to be no chief minister. Okay? Under the Norman and Angevin kings, the justiciar, which means judge, was the often chief minister. When kings left England to oversee other parts of the Angevin Empire, the justiciar functioned as his viceroy or regent. In the 13th century, after the loss of the Angevin territories in France, this would be the Plantagenet and Cadet branches of the Yorks and Lancaster. The justiciar power declined as monarchs resided permanently into England, okay, which is right here. All right, which is right here, brothers and sisters. Let's see. For the next 3 centuries, the Lord Chancellor was most often chief minister. The Chancellor served as keeper of the Great Seal, presided over the Privy Council and Parliament, and led to the higher courts of Chancery. After the English Reformation, Chancellor's power shifted to Lower High Treasurer, and after 1721, the office of Prime Minister became the head of the British government. You hear that? So the prime minister is head of the British government and chief ministers are head of the English government. There is, in fact, a difference, my brothers and sisters. There is, in fact, a difference. Let's look at it. Anglo-Saxon, Dunstan, okay? Dunstan, King Edgar. That's our Jesus Christ, who I'm the reincarnation of today, okay? Right here. Canute the Great, a Danish king. Harold Canute, a Danish king. Harold I, a Danish king. Harold Canute, a Danish king. Ever to confess to the last ruling king of the king of Wessex. Okay. Then you got the Normans. All right. You got the Normans. William II. All right. Son of William referred to Rufus. I think he's son of William the Conqueror. Yes. Henry I, another son of William the Conqueror. Then you got the Plantagenet crown. Henry II, son of Godfrey the 5th Count of Anjou, son of Fulk, ruler of Jerusalem. Richard I, dealing with time immemorial. John. Okay? Henry III, Edward I, Edward II, Edward III. Okay? All right there. Then you get into the War of the Roses, then the 100-Year Wars, then we get into the second 100-Year War, then you get into the House of Tudors, which you see right here. Come on, don't play with us. All right. Now let's look at a list of kings of the Netherlands, a list of monarchs of Netherlands, because we know that United Kingdom and Netherlands had an alliance. Okay. United Kingdom and Netherlands had an alliance going back to what? The Anglo and Dutch War. Okay? And they and the Dutch were aligned not with just United Kingdom or Great Britain, but they were also aligned with the Roman Catholic Castilians. Okay? We must make that connection. All right? The list of monarchs of Netherlands, okay, in which King William III was a monarch. How we know? William the Silent. That goes back to what? The Castilian Civil War. List of monarchs of Netherlands. Let's go back to the Castilian Civil War to see if this name come up. Where was we at? Where was I at? Oh, was that Netherlands? Was that the Netherlands, United Kingdom? Bear with me. I was at. Give me 1 second. Yes. Okay. Let's see. Oh, I know where I was. Hasbro, United Kingdom. All right, let me go back to where I was. Okay, so we went to a list of chiefs as ministers, okay, which were known as chief ministers before they became prime ministers, okay? This is very, very, very important because when you're dealing with the list of monarchs from Netherlands, okay, you go to William the Silent, okay? You go to William the Silent, okay? William the Silent, as you can see here. All right, so we know Netherlands and United Kingdom, right, had relations. That's where I wanted to go. United Kingdom and Netherlands had relations. Let's go back there. All right. United Kingdom and Netherlands had relations. That's very important to understand that. It says right here, early modern relations. The Anglo-Dutch Wars were a battle between England and the Kingdom of Great Britain during the Fourth War. This is the Anglo and Dutch War. So that meant that Great Britain must have been related to the Dutch, okay? Because Great Britain and the Dutch, okay? The Anglo-Dutch War were battles between England and the Kingdom of Great Britain during the Fourth War and the Dutch Republic during the 17th century. There were 4 wars in total. 2 were won by each side and ended with the Fourth Anglo and Dutch War. We know England is United Kingdom and Dutch is Netherlands. Okay? Very, very, very important. When we go back to the list of monarchs of Netherlands, okay, which was outlined with the United Kingdom, it's going to bring us to King William III. Okay? King William III, who preceded Queen Anne. So as we can see, the first king of Netherlands was William the Silent. Right here. All right. In 1533 to 1584. All right. We were already holding things down. Right here. William. Let's see what this is. King William III of England. All right. Now remember, the Crown of England was already here in New Jersey's government in 1702. It was called His Majesty's Council. Okay. Already set up, running. Okay. And we know that they was not unified until 1707 with Scotland and Ireland. So prior to that, it was separate government as an interior court functioning right here, either in Burlington or Post Amboy. All right. So William III, known as William of Orange, was the sovereign prince of Orange from his birth, all right, based upon who he descended down from, but he was also descended from the Dutch, i.e. Netherlands, okay? And we know that Kingdom of England, Ireland, and Scotland had separate realms until 1707, all right? We know that, all right? We know that. So let's look at William King William III. His successor was Queen Anne. His predecessor was King James II, and he was of Netherlands. He was the king of Netherlands. How we know that? We just seen it right here, 1702. So that meant that he had not just some Scottish in his family, but he also had Dutch in his family. Okay? Greetings, Brother Thomas from the House of Thomas. This is very important to understand. All right? Why it's important to understand? Because when you get into the history of New Jersey Provincial Council, under the authority of the crown, as I just said, Queen Anne, the successor of William III, the King of England, all right, soon to be King of England, but we know he was a Scottish king and a Dutch king, all right, gave instructions to Viscount Cornbury to set up the English government, because you know it was English government because the Parliament of Scotland and Ireland was separate from 1603 to 1707. So any government that was set up over here, based upon New Jersey Provincial Council, which we know was called Massey's Council, was the council of the representatives of the government of England. Okay? We must comprehend that, brothers and sisters. We must comprehend that. All right? And we understand that if William III successor was Queen Anne, and Queen Anne was reigning in 1702, and she reigned till 1714, that brings us to the Acts of Union. The Acts of Union refer to the Acts of Parliament won by the Parliament of Scotland. You hear that, brothers and sisters? One by the Parliament of Scotland, and one followed shortly equivalent act by the Parliament of England. They put into effect the International Treaty Union agreed on 22nd of July 1706, which politically joined the Kingdom of England and the Kingdom of Scotland into a single political state, now known as the Kingdom of Great Britain, with Queen Anne as the sovereign of both kingdoms. The English and Scottish Act of Ratification took effect on May 1st, 1707, creating a new kingdom with its parliament based in Palace of Westminster. Okay? The two countries had shared a monarch since the personal union of the crown in 1603, when King James VI of Scotland inherited the English throne from his cousin Elizabeth I to become James I, the Kingdom of England, in representation, but not as the actual office holder, because we know that they didn't unify till what? 1707. Okay? Very, very, very important to understand that. All right? That's when it became a political unit. Okay? Prior to that, the government was separate. All right? It was, in fact, separate. That takes me here. Queen Anne. Queen Anne succeeded William III, okay, of England, who goes all the way back to the kings of Netherlands, known as the Dutch, all right? And we know that those kings, all right, were also aligned with the Castilians, all right, as a result of Philip. What was his name? Let me just show that real quick to make sure I know what I'm talking about. Where is that at? Habsburg of Netherlands, okay? Habsburg of Netherlands united the Roman Catholics, Spanish House, Dutch House, and British House, okay? That's how they were unified. All right? Upon the death of Mary of Burgundy in 1482, her substantial possession included Burgundian Netherlands passed to her son Philip the Handsome. Okay, Burgundian of Netherlands. Okay, very, very important. And he became the first king of the Habsburg dynasty of the kings of Castile, which were a part of the Isabella of Castile, which is the Spanish conquest, all right, on the Spanish conquest, all right, through her daughter, what was her name? Joanna of Castile, right here. The evidence does not lie, okay? The evidence does not lie. So Queen Anne, all right, Queen Anne, in closing, Act of Union of 1707 was unified England, Ireland, and Scotland, all right, when she ascended the throne from William III. We know that there was no unification or political unification until 1707. So we can assume that England remained separate and independent from the time that the government was actually created, called the Parliament of England. And that goes back to what? Henry II. All right, let's look at that real quick. The Parliament of England, or Henry III, father of Edward I. Parliament of England was the legislature of the Kingdom of England, not Great Britain, not United Kingdom. That didn't come till 1707. So it would be safe to say that in 1702, the Parliament of England, going back to the 14th, 13th, 12th, and even before that, was right here. The Parliament of England was the legislature of the Kingdom of England from the 13th until the 1707, when it was replaced by the Parliament of Great Britain. So who passed those laws? All right? Who are passing these laws? Because it ain't the Parliament of England. All right? England's law was already in place. Parliament evolved from the Great Council of Bishops periods that advised the English monarch. Great Council was first called parliaments during the reign of Henry III. By this time, the king required Parliament's consent to levy what? Tariffs. Brothers and sisters, tariffs. This is where they inherited from. It passed it from them to the Plantagenet crown. Right here. King John, all of them. Right here. So let me go back here. Act of Union, 1707, with Queen Anne. Another important person to point out in regards to the takeover is Queen Anne's son, William, Duke of Gloucester. How many of you heard of him? William, Duke of Gloucester. Let's look at it. Prince William. Okay? Prince William, Duke of Gloucester. We know Viscount Cornbury, the royal governor, was appointed by William III, all right? King of England, but also a Dutch king. We know that the kingdoms remained separate. So he was never a king of England. He was just representing as the king of England, de facto in nature. All right. So Prince William Gloucester. This ain't the one I'm looking for. There we go. Prince William, Duke of Gloucester. All right. Here we go. Connecting the dots. And closing. Prince William, Duke of Gloucester, was the son of Princess Anne, Queen of England, Ireland, Scotland from 1702. And the government was sitting right here in 1702 in New Jersey called His Majesty's government, his council. Lady Queen of England, Ireland, and Scotland from 1702, and her husband, Prince George of Denmark. So Denmark goes into what we call the Danish, okay? Which also is affiliated with the what we call Netherlands, okay? He was the only child to survive infancy, styled Duke of Gloucester. He was viewed by the contemporary as the Protestant champion because his birth seemed to cement the Protestant succession established in the Glorious Revolution that had deposed his Catholic grandfather James II and 6th of the previous year. All right. Anne was estranged from her brother-in-law and cousin William III, which is William Orange II, and his sister Mary II, but supported links between them and her son. He grew close to his uncle William, who created him a Knight of the Garter, and which was also created by who? Edward III. Knight of the Garter. That was created by Edward III. All right? Very, very important, because when we're dealing with the Duke of Gloucester, that was created by who? Edward III. All right? Let's see. Duke of Gloucester. In closing. Duke of Gloucester is a British royal title after Gloucester, often conferred on one of the sons of the reigning monarch. The first creation was the Peerage of England, and the last is the Peerage of the United Kingdom. So they're the last. The current creation carries with it the subsidiary, hear that? Subsidiary titles of Earl of Ulster and Baron of Culloden. The title was first conferred to Thomas Woodstock, the 13th child of Edward III. You hear that? Edward III of the Plantagenet crown. Okay? We must understand our family ties, brothers and sisters. We must understand our family ties. Scotland is not a part of the family. Okay? They're not a part of the family. How we know that? When we go back to the wars of the Castilian Civil War, all right, we know that we were family before the influence of Roman Catholicism spread abroad. Okay? Spread abroad. So we must understand our connection to our ability to be able to get back to our foundation on the traders. Okay? All right here, because Gloucester County of New Jersey is named after Gloucester in England. Okay? Once again, Gloucester, New Jersey is named after Gloucester's in England. They're all no coincidence. And it was founded at the same time as the Glorious Revolution, 1689. Okay? 1686. All right? Very important. When we go back to the Glorious Revolution, in closing, around the same time, brothers and sisters, around the same time. Okay? So the Plantagenet crown, all right, started all of this. All right? We must understand that those representatives that you see today are not speaking on behalf of the English kings. We have to be our own ministers. All right? We have to be our own chief ministers. All right? And take it back to where it originated. All right? We have to go back into the ways and the minds of our forefathers without doubt or contradiction. Okay? So with that, understanding closing, brothers and sisters, here's the evidence. Here's the evidence. The evidence is that New Jersey is a subsidiary of the Crown of England and not the United Kingdom since 1702, which I just True. We can look at 1702 Provincial Council. A list of the terms says its authority is indefinite. Okay? And it's called the Crown of England. This is validated by New Jersey by Statute 46-2 and New Jersey by Statute 46-1. Okay? We also can qualify from this chart that New Jersey creates and preserves the quality of United States jobs. Goal is shared by all Americans with more than 95% of the world's population and 80% of the world's purchasing power outside the United States. Future American economic growth and jobs created depends on open market abroad. That means that citizens are employed. Okay? Citizens are employed. I didn't say that. That's what the United Kingdom said. Let's see. They said United government employs 40,700 in New Jerseyans employed by UK subsidiaries in 2018. How I know it, let's go to, they said it. They say it. So it ain't like they trying to hide it. This is from the United Kingdom's website, government of the UK. 40,700 New Jerseyans employed by UK societies in 2018. 20,130 jobs are supported by exports from New Jersey to the UK worth $4 billion in 2019. So the UK is saying exactly what New Jersey is saying about how much exports that are being received, not just by the UK, but also by Canada, Japan, China, Netherlands, as well as Mexico. Okay? We must understand. And all this goes back to the Anglo and Dutch trade wars, which we just talked about today. The Anglo-Saxon trade wars with the Dutch. And we know the Dutch is connected to the United Kingdom. And we know the United Kingdom and the Dutch are connected to Spain, okay, due to Roman Catholic influence. That's been the problem from day one. Okay? Let me just take care of this. So in 2013, New Jersey companies sold their products in 214 international markets. Top export markets include what? Canada. Right? Now there's a trade war going on in Canada in 2025. The goods and exports that were exported was 6.5 billion. Services export was 2.0 billion. All right? But there's a trade war implemented on Canada. All right? Did it affect United Kingdom? No. All right? As we've seen in the videos, Trump has exempted Canada from the trade war or the tariffs. Okay? But yet, 2.1 billion of goods and exports is going to United Kingdom. Services and exports over $1.9 billion is going to United Kingdom. Okay? And we know United Kingdom and Netherlands had an alliance. Okay? Right here, known as the Dutch. All right? And they are all connected. And they got $2.1 billion in goods and exports leaving the country, as well as services, $573 million. Okay? All right? But they are in bed together, and they're imposing tariffs on what? China, Mexico, and Japan is coming next. Japan is sure to come, as you can see here. Okay? All this was done on February 1st, 2025 by your president. Okay? by your president. This should be alarming to everyone. Okay? To everyone. So please, please, please honor your forefathers, honor the law, and just honor what's right. Okay? So with that, I'm gonna stop my share and I'm gonna leave you as I greeted you. And that's always in peace and love. Once again, all donations are acceptable. $sign Clifford Jefferson L or Third Tipping Church of England, as well as like, share, subscribe, as well as pass the word about our platform, about our church, about our organization, and about our purpose, our mission. Okay? So with that, peace.